in there.
Ooh, a little hesitation.
Everybody has their microphones on.
About this later.
I go ahead and call this meeting for October 8th, 2018 to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to everybody in attendance tonight and to those out there watching on live stream and Facebook. Start off with, can I get an approval for the agenda tonight, please?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Next thing we have on our docket is a presentation for the Housing and Redevelopment Authority presentation. Ms. Muka?
Thank you so much, Mayor. Tonight I was asked to be present just to speak with the council, give an annual report. So I've just put together a short presentation, 7 slides real quick. And I presume this is my remote, yes? Okay. So I come to you tonight as the Executive Director for the Local Housing Authority. And our main role in the community today is managing Hillside Court Apartments, which is located at 220 Reisdorf Street. So, as of late, there was some questions about what the HRA's role in the community was, and we did get a legal opinion that was shared, I believe, with the City Council from City Attorney Todd Coriel. And these are a couple of items I just pulled off of that opinion to share with the public as well. So, the Housing Authority was established in 1964 by the City of Sueur, and we are regulated by Minnesota Statutes 469. Our board commissioners are appointed by you folks here, the mayor and the city council, and they hold 5-year terms. HUD does have a recommendation that one of our tenants be a board member, and that has been the case for several years. We are a separate and distinct organization from the City of Sueur organization. We have our own tax ID number, and we, the HRA, employ myself as the executive director and 2 part-time maintenance and custodial staff. And you can certainly interrupt with questions if there is any. Okay. So what is Hillside Court? Hillside Court is a 48-unit apartment building. We have 4 2-bedroom units that are handicap accessible, ADA accessible and compliant. We have 44 1-bedroom units. Our units are very small, but appropriate for 1 to 2 tenants in each unit. The preferences, which means those that we serve, first and foremost, go in the order as listed on the slide here. It's 62 and older, handicap and disabled, veterans or surviving spouse of a veteran, victims of domestic abuse, working family or low-income folks. The income limits for those that live in our building or that qualify for subsidy is in a 1-person family, they must make less than $41,100, and for 2-person family, $46,950. There's a couple of caveats to this requirement in the sense that you can have a live-in aid, and their income is not actually counted toward the total income of the household. So if you're disabled and you require a live-in person, which we do have that situation happen here at a Hillside Court, then that income obviously does not count against or toward that tenant's rent. We also have found ourselves in a position at times, if we have no waiting list, but we have interested tenants, you can get permission, as I have since I started my role there, to actually house folks over income, but you have to have permission from the Minneapolis field office of HUD to do those things. We are a public housing facility, and rent is calculated based on 30% of the adjusted gross income of the tenant. SNAP food support, like EBT card income that those folks get, and federally funded work program support does not actually count against the rent calculation. A myth amongst folks that live in the community is that these folks are Section 8 or HCV voucher recipients, and they are not. We are strictly a public housing unit.
HCV vouchers?
Housing choice vouchers. We do not serve those folks, and I know very little about those programs, let's be honest. All right, moving on. The minimum and maximum rent for our units. If you are no income folks, we do have a few of those. The minimum rent for those folks is $50, and the maximum rent is $457 for our units. Our board reviews annually the maximum rent, and it's based on 80% of the one-bedroom fair market rent in Sueur County. Just a couple of fun facts that I kind of put together for tonight's presentation. We currently have 27 and serve 27 tenants that are disabled legally. We have 22 tenants that are over the age of 60, 15 tenants ages 40 to 60, 7 tenants ages 20 to 40, and 1 child under the age of 10. Several folks have, I think, lived at Hillside Court for quite a long time. I think Kathy, the gal that worked in my position prior to me, did a really nice job maintaining the public housing unit. And aside from a most recent discovery about the walkways, I think the facility has been maintained pretty well. So it really, truly is a safe place to call home for these people. And I think you can tell by the numbers here. We have 3 that have lived there 26 or more years, and to be honest, that number is actually over 30 years that those 3 tenants have lived there. 2 living there 21 or 25 years, 16 to 20 years, we have 4 tenants. 11 to 15, we have 6. 6 to 10 years, we have 10 tenants, and 2 to 5, we have 11. Very few 8 tenants that have been there a year or less.
Question.
Yes.
You have 52 total bedrooms in the 4 2-bedrooms and 44 1-bedrooms, but yet you have 72 residents. How can that be?
Say this one more time.
You have 4 2-bedroom apartments and 44 1-bedroom apartments, but yet you have 72 tenants. There's only 52 bedrooms total.
I guess I'll have to go back to the drawing board. I don't know where I miscalculated.
Well, you can-
So these are crossover numbers. I mean, these aren't just isolated numbers, right?
Crossover between 27 disabled are also can fit into the different age categories.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes. I mean, these are not isolated totals. This
Okay.
is just simply,
But
you know.
to be clear, one person per bedroom, or
Well, actually, they can house 2 people. Even the 1-bedroom units can house 2 people.
Okay.
Yep. And that's based on a requirement per square footage and fire marshal safety rules. You know, it's not ideal to have more than 1 person unless it's a couple. And over the years, if you look at our statistics, we don't serve a lot of couples just because the rooms are too small. I mean, the units are 345 square feet or less, and that's pretty tight squeeze for 2 people. Good question, thank you. All right, any other questions before we move on? All right, so just wanted to present you guys with kind of a snapshot of what our financials look like. And our fiscal year ends actually September 30th, so these are our figures based upon our 8/31 numbers. We're still working on month end for 9/30. But as you can see, I won't go line for line, but you can definitely see we're, kind of on point as far as revenues are concerned. We're over revenues as far as operating subsidy, because I passed out a sheet before everyone arrived tonight, and I'll reference that just because it talks about our operating subsidy and how it's calculated. As you can see, the number fluctuates from month to month, and I think I shared this in the Budget and Personnel Committee meeting that I attended. And what can affect this number and what it is exactly for us is your occupancy and your FOS score, which is a physical assessment score that you receive as a facility, and just the movement of the tenants as far as their income is concerned. Because you may continue to house these people as they lose their job or get a new job, end up making more money or make less. Their benefits, especially like benefits like MFIP or MSA, which is a county benefit, you're going to see a lot of fluctuation with that. So as you see the movement in their benefits, we are going to see a movement, an increase or a decrease in our operating subsidy. But you do your best to budget a target number. You're given an estimate. And as you can see, month to month, our obligation, like lines J through P, for example, on this report, you can see that our operating subsidy can be as low as $7,000, but it can be as high as, $9,274 from month to month. Any questions on the revenue side? All right, we'll look at the expenditures. So at this point, oh, sure. Okay, I think I know how to do that. Okay.
So the actual revenues coming in is 13,000 less than budgeted, so what happens at the end of the year? How do you make up that difference?
Well, I can respond to that. Our rent collection is around 10 to 14,000 monthly, so by year end, we'll actually be on point, Dave. Because right now, these figures are based, like in the top right corner, it says based on August 31st, but our year end is actually September 30th. So we have one more month of operating subsidy to pluck into this figure, as well as monies coming in from rent collected for the month of September.
Okay, so the 251 is the whole year budget.
Correct.
The 238 is just through the end of August?
Correct. Yep, and our year end is September 30th. Any other questions? All right, on the expense side, again, we're slightly under the total expenses for the year, but unless somebody would like me to, I don't think I'll probably go line for line. Is there any desire for me to read that? You all can read that. All right. Something that I did not present you with on these slides here is we do have this is called our operating budget, and we do have a capital fund budget as well, where we get a lump sum awarded to us annually through HUD, and it generally is around $48,000 to use toward capital improvements. Those dollars have to be planned for in a SIP plan. You have to submit a 1-year plan as well as a 5-year plan, and like, for example, the blighted property just next door to us, Blanche Wilson's property, that is in our 5-year plan to acquire that property and use that property to improve the parking situation at our building, knowing that we're non-compliant according to city code at this time. Any other questions with regard to expenses? All right, last and final part, what is the latest at the HRA? You may or may not have heard that we have a pretty serious improvement to our building that we need to handle. Our cantilevered walkways or balconies on the outside of our building actually have to be repaired. And a couple of Wednesdays ago when my board met, they actually decided we had 2 options to consider, one of which was to repair the existing walkway and reinforce it with steel and just fix the existing problem. Or we had the option, which for less money, just under $1 million, we could actually remove them and replace them with a non-cantilevered approach with columns and fixed structure up against our building. And the board needed to, at that point, make a decision on whether we were going to proceed with option 1 or option 2, so that I could proceed with funding opportunities or funding options as far as finding ways to, spend or, pay for the project. So our board did decide to go with option 2, which is remove the existing walkways and proceed with relocation of our tenants for a short period of time to handle complete replacement. The total project in full, hard costs alone, is just under $1 million, and then with relocation plans and other things that we'll have to pay for our tenants, we're looking at about $1.5 million with engineering, architecture, soil studies, and environmental studies as well. The funding sources that I'll be proceeding with trying to get are going to be through deed and Minnesota Housing. I had a preliminary meeting with Samantha upstairs to talk about the city serving as the fiscal agent for any deed funds granted to the city. The grant that we would be applying for, submitting preliminary paperwork, is called the Small Cities Grant. And a lot of housing authorities have used this to kind of close the gap on the money they don't receive through the capital improvement program, because obviously I can't take on $1 million project with $48,000 award annually of capital improvements. So that meeting went really well. Samantha was on board with trying to assist me with that grant. She brings experience in the deed office, which is great for this approach to the project, and the maximum we can receive through that program is $12,500 per unit, so a total of $600,000 to go toward this project. The other option that I'm going to be seeking is through Minnesota Housing, and it is a 20-year forgivable loan through the Minnesota Housing, and I will have the technical assistance call on that later this week, where we actually meet with staff from Minnesota Housing and they give us pointers on how to proceed with application. The timeline for the awards of these dollars does create a little bit of a interesting approach to the construction season next spring. So we're going to see how things work out as far as getting the award in the spring and handling the due diligence so we can proceed with the project next summer.
Do you feel confident that the Minnesota Housing grant would be sufficient to go ahead and make up the difference between what deed would provide and what you have as reserves at this point?
Yes.
Just what is the shoring will be installed this fall? What's that?
Shoring is just like beams you find in your basement. You know, the metal beams that you find on the walls, your load-bearing walls in your basement. That's going to be put on the exterior of our building. About every 3 or 4 feet, there'll be a piece of steel on the base of the walkway and a beam, and then another piece of steel on the lower part of the cement walkway.
So the funding is still up in the air, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if the funding doesn't come through, then things get postponed?
That is about our only option, yep. And we would have to go back to HUD, and I've had several conversations with HUD about, a plan B. I can tell you that I'm putting a lot of confidence in these two funding approaches because there's really not a lot of options as far as public housing and making this type of this magnitude of a project really come to fruition, because we just really are not granted the funds through the capital improvement program to handle this type of improvement. But the building has a lot of life in it, and I'm assured by taking option 2 that this will just create a better life for that building and continue to serve the population that we do. So I'm really confident. My husband says, you need a plan B, and I said, I haven't got there yet, but I'm hoping that this really, in my conversations with both Deed and with Minnesota Housing, they really reassure me that, this project is a good candidate for that. And so I have a lot of confidence in hopefully pursuing that. I do have one other option, which is something I just learned of last week, and it's a bank out of Iowa that does a similar type of program that Deed offers, and that can also be part of the equation if we need it to be.
How many vacancies do you currently have?
4.
4. And what would happen if we could not secure this 1.5 million through the different types of grants and loans that you're referring to. Would we be in jeopardy of having to shut down units?
HUD is aware, so the 4 units, the 4 vacancies that I do have are what they call offline according to HUD's records. So I had to get permission to take those off the books so they wouldn't affect our operating subsidy. So they are aware that there is the risk of losing 48 units in the public housing program, and Ryan, my HUD rep at the Minneapolis office, has been very, very cooperative and very helpful. To be honest, I don't know the answer to that question, Mayor, but I know that the message I've been given from Minneapolis HUD is that the loss of 48 units in a community this size could really be detrimental to the population that we serve. So I'm confident that HUD would help me through, whether it be an advance in the capital funds, and Ryan has talked to me about that. The problem with that approach, taking an advance against our capital funds for 10 years or something to make up the difference from what we have in savings and investments, the volatility of the capital fund program is different based on who the president is. So you can't put a lot of faith in that program as well.
Great, thank you.
Monica,
Yeah.
what's the relocation? You talked about relocation of your tenants early on. What's that going to look like as this project moves forward?
Yep. So the preliminary thought behind relocating tenants is that they need to be individually assessed. So I'll meet individually with each tenant to make sure their needs are met as far as their handicap requirements and any kind of special needs that they might have as far as steps, no steps, making sure they can get to their doctor appointments and their, food. I mean, we offer a senior dining site, so we need to make sure those meals are provided for through another program. So what I'm in the process of doing, now that I know what approach we're taking and how long folks are going to need to be displaced, is developing what they call a relocation plan. And so I've spoken with the regional coordinator for relocation out of the Chicago HUD office, and she assures me what would happen is, let's say you speak to a friend or to a tenant and they have a friend or family member that they can stay with through the duration of the project, which would be ideal for folks. They would get a daily per diem or a stipend. So that would be a certain dollar figure. I'm not going to publicly say what they're recommending because I haven't presented it to my tenants yet or my board. So they have a dollar figure that they say, okay, through the financing that you actually pursue, this is part of the calculation. So you give them, X number of dollars to live off while they're living or staying with family or friends. And then the other option is to actually find them alternate housing. And from a practical standpoint, all the HUD says we need to provide them is the opportunity to microwave something or keep something cold in a refrigerator. So microwave and refrigeration. So for example, like the downtown motel actually has those in every room. So a couple of my tenants have said to me, I'm okay with moving to the motel for the duration. And, it might not be right for everybody, but everybody's needs would have to be met in a different way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
very much so. What is the duration of?
4 months.
4 months. Thank you.
But that's a construction schedule, so
Right.
4 months.
Yeah.
I say that with a little bit of confidence. Any other questions? All right. That is all I have for tonight, unless there's other questions for you guys.
Well, I think everybody up here certainly got their eyes open in regards to all the facts and figures and what the goings-on are over there at HRA, and thank you very much for the presentation.
Yes, have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Okay. Consent agenda. All items are considered routine. Does anyone wish to remove any item for discussion? Actually, I'd like to go ahead and remove item C, Arbor Day resolution, and talk about that after we approve the rest of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to go ahead and approve the consent agenda, items A and B?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried. In regards to the Arbor Day resolution, I wanted to share with everybody that I received a letter from Senator Tina Smith, our United States Senator, and it says to the Honorable Greg Hague, Mayor of Sueur, Dear Mayor Hague, congratulations to you and your entire community for receiving the distinction of Tree City USA from the National Arbor Day Foundation. I'm so proud of all 106 Minnesota communities that worked so hard in 2017 to meet the tree care standards and show the rest of the country how much we value our healthy community forests. The 42-year-old Tree City USA program partners with the U.S. Forest Service, an agency with the Department of Agriculture. The role of the Forest Service is communicating healthy forestry practices and assisting states and organizations like the Arbor Day Foundation cannot be understated. As a member of the Senate Agricultural Committee, I have been so pleased to learn more about the Forest Service Urban and Forest Community Program and their commitment to energy conservation through tree management. The Tree City USA program recognizes towns and cities that are committed to investing time and resources in the management of their public trees. Over 143 million Americans and 54.5% of all Minnesotans are lucky enough to live in a tree city. In Minnesota, the recognized communities range in size from the small town of Sunfish Lake to the city of Minneapolis. We Minnesotans know the importance of local forestry management for improving air and water quality, which is why communities like yours planted 34,360 trees in 2017. Planting new trees can also reduce the cost of stormwater management and help conserve energy consumption in nearby buildings. I applaud the residents of your community for joining in these efforts, and I hope you will pass along my best wishes to those involved in the local tree care initiatives. Sincerely, Tina Smith, United States Senator.
Before we approve,
Please.
can we change the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th whereas from Northfield to LeSueur?
Yeah, I think that would be very appropriate.
Thank you.
So once we make the changes to the proclamation for Arbor Day, which is April 26th, 2019, can we get a motion to go ahead and approve the proclamation and instruct staff to go ahead and make sure the necessary changes are made to reflect the city of LeSueur as opposed to Northfield?
So moved. Second.
Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion too is carried. We now have public comment. Do we have anybody from the audience that would like to address City Council tonight? Seeing none, go ahead and take a motion to go ahead and close public comment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. Public hearings tonight. Tonight we have a public hearing on the mayor and city council pay ordinance and the second reading.
Mayor Hague, if I may, and City Council. This is the second reading. We're also holding a public hearing, which we published in the paper, to allow the public to come in and make any public comments about the proposal in the ordinance. The proposed action tonight is to open the public hearing after I give a short presentation, receive comments that we'll put on the record from the public on this ordinance, and then if council so chooses, to conduct the second reading of the ordinance and then approve the ordinance as attached in the packet. So just to recap, there haven't been any changes between the first reading and the second reading. City Council has the authority to set their own pay. Any changes that go into effect need to go into effect after the next election, which is this November. The proposal effective date is January 1st of 2019. The mayor's pay would go from $300 per month to $360 per month, and the council pay would go from $220 per month to $310 per month. There would be no compensation for any additional meetings attended. That would include work sessions, MRPUC, any other meetings that city council members are appointed to for their boards and commissions. And I went and used the League of Minnesota Cities salary database for elected officials and did a survey for cities' populations between 1,000 and 8,000 and came up with some averages. The proposed changes fall within a pretty good comparison of the averages that I found. So with that, I'll entertain any questions. City Council can open up the public hearing. If there's anybody here that would like to speak, they can speak. And then you can close it and then proceed.
Any questions from members of council?
I stated my concern before about the mayor's salary not being high enough, and it looks like that's going up about 20%, and the council's going up about 85%. And I don't understand that rationale. I think the mayor's position has we have a lot more expectations for the activity and the time that the mayor puts in and represents the city in a variety of different ways than the council members. So I just call your attention to that differential there, a 20% increase for council and, or 85% for council and about 20% for the mayor. Doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, duly noted. Anybody else have anything? Okay. Go ahead and entertain a motion to go ahead and open up the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Public hearing is now open. Does anybody wish to address city council regarding the mayor and city council pay ordinance? Seeing that we have nobody that's interested in addressing council, I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and close the public hearing.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Public hearing is now closed. Entertain a motion to go ahead and waive the second reading of the public hearing for mayor and city council pay ordinance.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Roloff.
I am still going to vote no on this. There is a handful of actually citizens in town that have contacted me and that has encouraged me to vote no on it. But I have also had citizens contact me to vote yes on it.
I was gonna say, are you in a position where you'd like to stay at your current rate then? Is that what you're telling us?
Yes.
Really?
But I will be voting no on it, just because the ones that have contacted me and that have shared their concerns voting no on it, feel, I'm just gonna vote no on it. But I do also want to make note on the record that the handful that have contacted me to vote yes on it have said that we are doing more things in town as a actually city council, and that it's being noticed from the prior years. So I just want to make that noted that the ones that have tried to and encouraged me to vote yes on it have said that they have noticed of changes here in town, and that we should be happy as a actually city council for the for the changes.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Roloff. Has anybody else received any comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, the
Councilmember
point of order,
Roloff.
before the council right now is the issue of waiving the reading, and that is it. We're not discussing the merits.
That's
I
correct.
understood you allowed that's okay, but we need to focus on this.
So, we have a motion, we have a second to go ahead and waive the second reading. We are now into discussion of that. Is there any additional discussion?
What would be the reason not to waive it?
To waive the reading?
Yeah.
Well, the city code requires all ordinances introduced to be read publicly unless unanimously waived. The reading is unanimously waived by the council. It's simply a formality where you read into the record what the ordinance states verbatim. or you waive it since it's in the agenda and provided to the public anyway. It's up to you. So it's usually it's an efficiency thing.
So we have a motion and a second to go ahead and waive the second reading. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
For the reading of it, it's gotta be unanimous, so now I have to read it all. Ordinance number XXX, and that number will be filled in whether or not whether if this is approved. In ordinance pursuant to MSA 415.11, which allows the city council to adjust salaries for the mayor and city council members via ordinance. The LeSueur City Council does ordain that the LeSueur City Council declares salaries for the mayor and city council may be adjusted from time to time by ordinance that follows the charter city rules and following Minnesota State Statute 415.11. Now therefore, the city council of the city of LeSueur hereby ordains as follows. 1, the city of LeSueur mayor shall receive a salary of $360 per month, or a total of $4,320 annually. 2, the city of LeSueur city council members each shall receive a salary of $310 per month, or a total of $3,720 annually. 3, the city of LeSueur mayor and city council shall not receive any additional salary or stipends for any boards, commissions, team, or panel that they have been appointed. Effective date would be January 1st, 2019. This ordinance becomes effective from and after its passage and 7 days after its publication. This ordinance was passed by the Common Council on October 8th, 2018, and it would be signed by myself, Greg Haig, as the mayor, and attested by Stacy Lawrence as our communications director and city clerk. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I
Councilmember.
hesitate to do this, but I think it's probably appropriate. The third item in the issue, I moved to amend it to add the words after panel in the last line, to which they have been appointed.
To which.
So it'd read, the city, LeSueur mayor, and the city council shall not receive any additional salary or stipends for any board, commission, team, or panel to which they have been appointed.
Okay, or
I so-
which they have been
Right, it's a typo, we could call it, but it's probably important, so I so move to make that amendment.
Is there a second to the amendment to the ordinance?
Second the amendment.
Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of ordinance number?
Are we gonna just,
To the amendment.
so this is the motion to approve this?
This is just to amend right now.
We're only voting on the motion to amend, excuse me.
Okay.
All in favor to go ahead and amend the ordinance to which they have been appointed?
Call the vote again.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried. Now, in regards to the matter of whether or not we're gonna continue to go ahead and, deal with the matter of the pay increase effective January 1st, 2019, is there any additional discussion on that?
Mayor,
Councilmember Johnson.
I'm gonna vote no for a different reason than Ben's. I stated it before, I don't think the mayor's salary is high enough. I think the salary increases are fine, so it's kind of an opposite reason to vote no from Ben, but I don't think the mayor's is high enough, and I want to emphasize that, so I will be voting no for that reason.
And Councilmember Roloff, yours is because of public input, correct?
Yes, yep.
Is there anybody else that has anything to offer? Okay, duly noted. Can I get a motion to go ahead and approve city council pay to $310 for our city council members and $360 for our mayor, effective the 1st of January 2019?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
No.
Motion is carried, 5-2 vote. And the reasons for those nays have been duly noted. Okay. We now move on to our regular agenda. And the first item on our docket is the oath of office for various boards, commissions, and councils. City Administrator.
Mayor Hague, members of the city council, one thing that has come up through examining our city code is that our planning commission is required to have an oath of office that they sign when they start their appointment. That is something that we haven't practiced here at the city, and it's something that we're trying to provide a solution for. So what we've done, and through my research, Samantha DiMaggio's research, and some input from legal counsel, we've come up with an oath of office that we believe we can use for any of the boards and commissions that we have. I have created them for basically the 5 that I feel are, I guess, have the most bearing and they meet most frequently. But we can use this for any of them, any or all of them, if city council chooses. The ones that we have are the Economic Development Authority, the Planning Commission, Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee, the Airport Commission, and City Council. So basically all this says, and we can kind of show you this. So per city code, the Planning Commission is required to sign an oath of office. And just as a note, the Planning Commission on Wednesday, I believe, I think it's the 10th, they're going to be looking at some procedures that they will provide feedback for, and eventually, I don't know if this will happen on the 10th, but eventually they'll provide a procedures document that City Council will evaluate and look at and approve. So, and that's kind of the idea with all of the other boards and commissions that Council directs, is that they come up with their own procedures. I think that'd be the best course of action, to let them develop it, City Council review, and then approve. That puts the onus on the boards and commissions to come up with what they feel is appropriate and for their procedures. So just a note, we are implementing that. We are rolling forward with that in the Planning Commission. This is an example of the oath of office that has been developed, and I did notice, well, I did receive input on a little typo. A is supposed to be and, so I put this one up there to describe that. So I can read it. Basically, this would be the one for the city council. It'd be I, and then it would be the city council or mayor. An elected city council member of the city of Sueur, do affirm that I will faithfully perform the duties of my appointed office, that should be elected for city council, and will support and honor to the best of my ability all applicable laws of the city of Sueur County, and the state of Minnesota, as well as the applicable policies or procedures adopted by the Sueur City Council. I hereby, through this oath of office, affirm that I will perform the duties of this public trust in a fair, equitable, and ethical manner, befitting the dignity and responsibilities of the office, to the best of my judgment and ability. And each member would sign it, then the city administrator would sign it and date it, and we would put it in each one of the council members and mayor's files. We would do this. This is applicable because of the election year, and we could potentially have some, at least one new member here. This is something that hasn't been formally adopted by city councils. When council member Sullivan was appointed, we, through legal counsel, developed this oath of office, or came up with an oath of office. This would more formalize it for city council and the other boards. The language is pretty. I think it's well written. I didn't write it. This is something that we've done some research on, League of Minnesota Cities and other communities that have these. And the idea is that there will be procedures associated with kind of the nuts and bolts of each of the commissions as well, adopted eventually. So what we're looking for is just, I hope everybody's had a chance to read the oath of office. Basically, I think the talking points are to determine what boards and commissions that City Council would like these oath of offices provided to. Staff recommendation is for sure the Planning Commission, because that is indicated in City Code. But if there are other ones, the staff recommendations would be the Economic Development Authority, Planning Commission, RPAC, Airport Commission, and then City Council as well. But if there are any others that we would like, we can do that as well. So with that, I'll entertain any questions, comments, and look for some direction.
Councilmember Favelis.
When it comes to the City of LeSueur City Council, it's almost irrelevant to have multiple of these. When you think about it, City Council should include any and all commissions or boards that a City Council member is on, and you would just write what that is. But to have them and sign this one and sign that one and sign another one, I'll be signing for the rest of my life.
Good point.
Yeah, we could add a clause in there about any appointed boards, commissions, anything like that. That'd be pretty easy. Then you'd only have to sign one, and if you're on a board and commission, then it just kind of transfers over to that as well.
Question in regard to that. If each of these different groups is going to develop their own procedures that relate to these responsibilities and so forth, then it isn't a moot point. Didn't you talk about a procedures document that each of these commissions is going to develop that's associated with this oath in some way?
Planning and zoning.
So
But is it just planning and zoning, or is it each of these groups?
it'll be as directed with City Council. Planning Commission is going to be looking at it already. If there's any other ones, EDA, it might be applicable to do. But regarding the oath of office won't change. The procedures could, but the oath of office will stay the same.
Okay, my concern, and I emailed this, is what kind of orientation or training will be provided to the commission, council, commission members so that they understand what this means? Will there be examples of what is not ethical or equitable and so forth, and what responsibilities are and what is? I think it's a nice oath and so forth, but just to sign off on it and pledge to it without really understanding it and how it can be applied or not applied in a correct way in these groups, to me, is making an assumption that I would guard against.
Yeah, I would have to second that as well. I think that it's very important that lessons learned, we have to make sure that everybody's properly trained in regards to the office that they're holding. And we have to make sure that ethics training is held, code of conduct training is held, and what their roles and responsibilities are for each office. And with that said, I personally would like to go ahead and recommend that we create an oath of office for every board, commission, and committee that has anything to do with the city of LeSueur.
Yeah, I can touch base on the training aspect that you mentioned. So if you remember, City Council has a pretty extensive, almost day-long or so training where we give orientation, where we have department heads, legal counsel come in and talk about things, open meeting law again for probably the 20th time for some of you. But so I think we have it pretty well dialed in for City Council. For the other boards and commissions, we have orientation packets, information that we give them. There will be ongoing training for planning commission members. EDA training will be available as well. I think it's important that we stay on top of it, especially for the planning commission, because they're not getting applications numerous times a year. It's something that might happen once a year, and you have to be ready for it. So we've had one training event, or actually two now, for the Planning Commission. One was in Montgomery and one was held here. I think they both went well. And as we have these training events, we compile and add to this orientation packet that we have. So we hope that we are providing enough information for the new members, but we hope that they ask questions as well if they have any questions. But we're going to continue, and we budgeted extra dollars in 2019 for additional trainings for boards and commissions. So I think that we will have adequate trainings for these. EDA, I'm not sure if they've had any trainings or anything like that, but I think the Planning Commission is probably the most important because they have an integral role to help provide the City Council with information to make decisions. So I'm confident that we have that lined up, and we can do that, and talk to your Planning Commission members, the community. if you don't feel that they're adequately trained, let us know, because we need to know, and we can get some additional training.
Well, sometimes you, as a new council member or commission member, you don't know what you don't know. You're not experienced enough on the specific things you're getting involved in to ask a question at that point. And so having some examples, some scenarios to illustrate what these mean in real life for a council or commission member, either positive or negative, I think would be helpful. I don't believe you can just assume new people coming on these commissions automatically know even the questions to ask about what things come up. So good scenarios or examples would be helpful.
I think that's a great idea as well.
Well, I think it's also,
Councilmember Families.
I think it's important to consider the idea that when you have a new city council member, we're all somewhat responsible for being mentors to the new people that wind up coming on board. It's not just a matter of handing out a packet. It's our responsibilities, I think, if we're going to be making decisions together to be able to make sure that the people that are coming on board are up to speed. Why do we do the things that we do? It's easier for us to be able to answer that than to just hand out a packet too.
Right, and as a side note to that, anybody that is an elected official does go through League of Minnesota city training, as we've all done. So I see that that's going to be something that would continue. Any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'm
Councilmember
just curious what we're being asked to do here. Are we being asked, if someone's to make a motion, that we adopt these as the oath of office with the idea that the city council would also include boards and commissions? What are we talking about when this would be implemented? Does it begin the 1st of January? Does it begin tomorrow? I'm not sure what we're being asked to do. I think we're probably able to move forward with it, but I'm trying to get a feel if staff really wants us just input and do more, or where are we?
Yeah, I can answer that. So it's really up to the direction of city council. If there's any changes, I think the board and commission thing makes a lot of sense to add that into the council one. The questions at hand that I think I have in my mind are, do we want to have them, as the mayor suggested, for all of the boards and commissions, committees, advisory boards, things like that, for everybody? One thing that comes up to mind, when we do, let's say we have a task force, like we had a utility billing task force a year and a half ago or so, is that something that you want them to sign an oath of office for as well? That would be a question, because that happens occasionally. I don't know, I can't foresee what the next task force will be, but that'll be something to think about as well when we establish a task force. So, and it would be, the recommendation was, if council feels confident or comfortable with the oath of office, we would implement this immediately and make the board and commission members all sign these, and we'll put them in our file. The other thing that has come to light is, and we've been talking about it internally quite a bit, is communication with our boards and commissions. Right now, board and commission members don't have a City of LeSueur email address. We're looking at if we have the ability to have enough account space to add all of the board and commission members. That way we can track if people have received packets, things like that. We can sign them up for Notify Me on the website and make sure they get all of their documents. It's I think something that would enhance some of our communications. We know that the email works, we hope. But I think we have enough. I'm working with our IT vendor to see if we have enough space on our Exchange server to do this. But that would be something to look at too, on top of this, to make sure that we have a good communication channel for our board and commission members. But basically, looking for direction, if you guys feel comfortable with the oath of office, basically a motion to approve it with the changes if it's applicable, and then also if we want to have it for all boards and commissions, we can do that as well.
Okay. Let's treat them as two separate motions then. Let's first off go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the concept of having an oath of office for the City of LeSueur at this time for our Planning Commission, Economic Development Authority, Recreation Parks Advisory Committee, Airport Commission, and City Council.
Can you just, before we make a motion, just maybe Jasper mentioned in his introductory comments and I missed it. What is the overall purpose in having this oath?
So it stems from the planning commission being required in our city code to have an oath of office that they sign. So there's a charter implication. And the idea is that, well, if the planning commission is doing it, should we implement it for all of the other boards and commissions? Does it make sense? Is it something that city council wants? In my opinion, my recommendation would be, yeah, at least to these 5 groups that we have here. If we want to go to everybody, then we can also do that as well. So the idea is that that there's an oath of office for the planning commission at a minimum because it's required in our charter. But I think it makes sense for at least the 4 others.
So in a way, isn't it a pledge to come up to a certain level of performance as a commission member or a council member and so forth? Aren't you pledging to perform up to a standard that the city or these different groups have?
Essentially, it's saying that you will act in the best interest of the city and work at the best of your ability and judgment. So it's holding the members to a higher standard and accountable.
And so it's important that people that do pledge this or take this oath understand, have examples and understand what they're pledging.
Mr. Mayor, I heard you say in concept, but might I suggest it might be it would be appropriate to simply have a motion to approve these 5 that are listed. I'll repeat them for clarity. Economic Development, Planning Commission, Recreation and Parks, Airport, and City Council, with the addition of boards and commissions to the City Council. Just move those 5, and if we want to do others, we could do it separately.
That's fair enough. So we have a motion from Councilmember Krogman to approve the 5, that being Planning Commission, Economic Development Authority, Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee, the Airport Commission, and City Council. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any additional discussion?
So Charter Commission or Comprehensive Plan Action Team would not.
Not at this time. That's going to be another
Not
motion.
in this motion, if
That's
I may.
another motion.
This would cover those. We want to add others, we can, but this clarifies these. And of course, with the City Council, it adds boards and commissions, which.
That's correct. So we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion is carried. Now I'd like to go ahead and have a motion for the rest of our boards, commissions, and committees as well, that we have an oath of office for them as well. Councilmember Sullivan.
And make a motion to include all boards and commissions for the city of Sueur
I'll second.
with the oath of office.
Okay?
I'll second.
And we do that with the caveat that there will be training provided for each of these individuals and that they'll understand exactly what their roles and responsibilities are and what they're signing. So we have a motion, we have a second for all boards, commissions, and committees within the city of Sueur to go ahead and sign the oath of office. Any additional discussion?
I will probably vote yes, so don't worry, okay? But I'd prefer they be listed so we know, when you go back, you try to figure out what they are, what are we talking about? I would prefer there be a list and we approve an exact
We will
list.
read them off. Our city administrator is going to go ahead and pull them
Well,
up right
again,
now.
that's a moving target,
Mhm.
okay? If we establish a new one, this motion would include anything in the future, just so everybody's
All
clear.
boards and commissions.
That's right.
Not the task force, though, at this point.
Right.
We're not
And,
talking.
and I think if we create a board and commission in the future, I think they should be included in this.
Right.
Well,
I'm just, go ahead.
Why wouldn't we just say all existing and future? And then it's all encompassing.
I agree. I'm just saying, I think we want to be real clear what we're talking about.
Our city attorney, Coriel.
Just as a point of clarification, this council has the authority to appoint various ad hoc committees on an as-needed basis. Are we talking about those, or are you suggesting just all permanently created commissions going forward and
At this
existing now?
time, just the permanently created ones that are recognized by our charter. City administrator.
I have a question for legal counsel about the charter commission and the authority of that. Technically, city council doesn't appoint people to the charter commission. I think that they would not be subject to an oath of office. District court judge appoints members to the charter commission. I don't know if the city council has authority to have them sign an oath of office. So that's a question I have.
I would agree that the council likely doesn't have that authority.
Okay. So all existing boards, commissions, and committees, with the exception of the Charter Commission, is what we're talking about here then. Okay. Any additional discussion?
So we don't care if the charter commission members are ethical?
Well, that's, the district court judge appoints them though, so it's
The
out of our
point is
hands.
that you only have the authority to control the commissions and boards that you have the authority to control. And if you're gonna require an oath of office for appointing people to boards and commissions, you better have the authority to appoint those people. And I don't think you do with the charter commission.
And the court doesn't have any kind of an oath that they take?
No. That's all statutory. If the legislature would have required an oath by charter commissioners for that, they would have put it in the statutory language.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, again, to be clear, if we use the word existing, which I've heard used here, then ones we do in the future probably are not covered. If we just said any boards or commissions without the word existing, I think we're much clearer. Or if we said now and in the future. I don't care, but let's be clear.
And getting back to my initial motion, I said any boards and commissions.
Thank you. But I've heard the other language.
But the motion on the floor was any
Any-
board and commission.
Any boards, commissions, and committees. That's what I've got written down here.
And for a point, to make it clear, and maybe it should be amended, and I can make that, to state anything that we have the ability to appoint that commission. Because obviously the charter commission comes into question there.
Okay. Any additional discussion on this?
Let's be clear then, please. What is the motion?
The motion is to go ahead and have the oath of office for all boards, commissions, and committees that we as a body have the authority to oversee. That the oath of office obviously would be something that would be a requirement moving forward.
That's fine. I just want to make sure we're all understood.
Everybody understand the motion? And we have a second?
Who is the second?
Yeah, we have discussion. Is there anybody else that has anything to say regarding this? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried. I'd like to thank you all very much for helping us get through this. Let's move on to line item 8 Bravo, which is our public purpose expenditure policy.
Mayor Hague, members of the city council, this is a continuation of our discussion that we had at the last council meeting on September 24th. In summary, the initial draft was evaluated at that September 24th city council meeting. Feedback was given to staff. We've incorporated that feedback into the current draft that's in the packet. I have highlighted the areas that have changed to make it more clear as far as what we've changed. As kind of a summary, refreshments for employees working during excessively hot days, that word was changed. We've included sweeteners in the coffee creamer and sweeteners for the police department. Other permitted expenditures, just some wording, use of staff and equipment for public events. I think it makes it more clear that we're not paying staff for these public events outside of their city hours. The monuments and items of appreciation located on public property for city council members, boards and commissions, and city employees. We've made that more broad and encompassing. The employee service recognition program has included the paid on-call firefighters. I have done a little research on this. They do have an annual meeting, but they don't have any sort of monetary incentive program to incentivize longevity. So I've included that. If that's something that we want to keep in there, that's something we can. And then in there, there's a nuance, and I'm not sure if this is worded in the correct manner that was directed. I just want to make sure that it is. So Employees may only receive up to a $300 gift card in any calendar year. After looking at this and after thinking about it a little bit more, I don't know if that served the intent of what the council kind of directed. I think it maybe should read something, employees may only receive either the anniversary program or the retirement program in any given year.
One or the other, but not both.
Yep. So something like that, the 300, I was thinking, well, if somebody has 30 years, but somebody could have 15 years and retire and still get $300. It's up to city council how they would like to word it. So what we're looking at, those are the changes. They were very minimal. I have talked to Todd, legal counsel, about the employee service recognition program that was brought up by Councilmember Johnson about the legalities of that. It's something that's commonly done with other cities. I know I'm not privy to school district statutes, things of that nature, but I'm confident, and I don't know if legal counsel wants to weigh in on that if there's any questions from city council, but the way that it's written currently, I feel that it's appropriate if the city council feels it's an appropriate public purpose expenditure. So with that, I'll entertain any questions. What we're looking for is just a motion to approve this. The funny thing is that since we've started talking about this, I've had 3 other cities wanting this when we get it done. So it's kind of interesting. And they're all smaller southern Minnesota cities, so they're looking at it as well, following it.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Just for clarification, back up to the excessively hot days, using that terminology, just so we're not, one department gets it, the other doesn't, is there a clarity as who determines that?
It would be me. It'd be
Do we need to clarify that, I guess, is the bigger question.
yeah.
As directed by the,
Under policy, it says with city administrator approval.
Okay, I missed that, sorry.
Yeah, so, council member program, the city administrator is responsible for authority overseeing all of these, so it falls on the city administrator.
any additional questions for the city administrator? Okay. Entertain a motion to go ahead and adopt the public purpose expenditure policy for the city of Sueur.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. We now move on to line item 8, Charlie, which is our public works equipment update.
Mayor Hague, members of the city council, our public services director was not able to attend this meeting, so I am filling in for him, but I am in the know with all of these equipment issues that we have, and can talk about it in great detail as far as what's being requested. I have gone through and basically incorporated the information from the packet into the slides on the PowerPoint. I will go through each item, and what we're talking about is basically things that weren't planned for in the 2018 budget. They're essential pieces of equipment. One thing we can do, and we can always wait until next year and push it off, but there are costs to doing that. There's service level costs, there's rental costs if we need something, and things like that. So first thing we're going to start with is the 2008 Freightliner water truck. We have spent some money, some of our expenditure dollars on repairs and maintenance on this already this year, just over $2,600. There's a tank valve repair that was done. There's still repairs that are necessary. There's a turbo that needs to be replaced, and then deck gun repairs. So those are estimated to be $3,300. One thing to keep in mind is that this is an essential piece of equipment for the fire department as well. So they use this probably more so than our street department, but it all falls under the general fund expenditure budget. So they're looking at this. I mean, it's a 2008. We need some work done on it. It's not something that we think that needs to be declared surplus. It's a expensive piece of equipment. We're talking $100,000 plus for this. So there are some repairs, and the recommendation from staff is to proceed with the repairs. And one thing that we're doing, we've looked at the budgets, and we're basically through Q3 or third quarter. And we're looking pretty good as far as our budgets go and things that haven't been expended, especially in our capital improvement fund. So there's funds available that we can allocate for these. It's a council decision if we want to proceed or if we don't. If we want to, but basically budget for these repairs next year. We can do that, but there are, as I mentioned before, some costs. So I'll just entertain questions on each piece of equipment as we go through it.
With the turbo repairs, is this anything like the turbo repairs on newer, modern vehicles? Because when they go, they take out a lot of things with them. Is that what they're saying with this?
I don't believe so. I think it's, these large diesel engines, they're a little bit different than like a car or something like that. It's basically if the turbo goes out, it goes out. It doesn't damage other items. The deck gun repairs, I mean, that's all stuff, the components on the box of the truck. So it's been looked at numerous times. I think since TJ and Rich have started, it's almost been in the repair shop more than it's been in our garage.
And the deck gun's what actually puts the water on the street.
It can be. So you have options. You have some sprayers on the front and back, but if you want to, let's say, take a sprayer gun and spray something individually, you can do that as well. But that item no longer works. So the reason why we're bringing this up is because we're basically maxed out of our maintenance and repair budget for the streets and parks department. So we want to bring this up, talk about it with city council, and get some direction as far as what we want to do.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Councilmember Cronin.
I'd like others to check me, but the three items that are requested for funding would be the Freightliner water truck, the Freightliner plow truck, and a 2005 F-350. Unfortunately, the recommendation at the end of this doesn't say how much that is.
$6,700.
I get $7,300. That's what I'm asking people to check.
52,
3,300, 2,300, and 1,500, I think, are the figures.
6,700 is what I come up with.
What are you adding up, totaling?
The estimated
repairs
cost
still
of
needed.
repairs. The first one is 3,300,
you're
the second
right.
is
You're right.
2,300, and the third is 1,500.
66, 56, and 15.
But there's more than three vehicles.
The others are surplus.
Yeah, the others are
So we're coming
surplus.
back to that.
Correct, yep. So there are three items, and I'm not sure what the total was at the end, but what we're looking for is basically a motion to approve the proposed repairs. I can do the math on that at the end if we need to.
And to be clear, we have monies available fiscal year 2018 for our CIP to go ahead and make the repairs on these three vehicles.
We do.
5 is 11.
71?
I think it's 7,100.
Yeah, that's what I come up
Okay.
with.
That's why I said it was very quickly. I think we should treat these separately for
Exactly.
ease here.
I do
So
too.
I would move that we authorize the repair of the three items mentioned for a total cost of $7,100.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any additional discussion?
Jasper, is there, it sounds like there are ongoing issues, but it also sounds like it's ongoing issues since Rich has been on. Is it just that they're going over everything, and as we're going over everything, it's like duct tape and bubble gum's been holding everything together until then, or what?
I wouldn't say that necessarily. I would say a fresh set of eyes. You see a lot of things that maybe were overlooked. But I think it's good that we're finding these things and trying to address them as opposed to just keep putting them off, because we'll get into a situation where it'll cost a lot more than it does today to fix it. So it's good. I have great confidence in TJ, the Streets and Parks Manager, in looking at equipment and knowing what needs to be done to it. A lot of things and kind of the mentality of the past is just kind of keep it going and do it for as, inexpensive as possible. That mentality can catch up to you eventually.
Good job to whoever's taking pictures of our vehicles, because they look pretty good.
Any additional discussion? So all in favor of authorizing $7,100 from CIP for the fiscal year 2018 for the 2008 Freightliner water truck, the 2001 Freightliner plow truck, and the 2005 F-350 vehicle. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is carried.
Mr. Mayor, to expedite things, I would move that we declare the following items as surplus as handed out to us in this handout. The 1992 F-700 bucket truck, the 2008 F-150, and the 1992 F-250.
We have a motion to go ahead and approve to put for surplus the 1992 F-700 bucket truck, the 2008 F-150, and the 1992 F-250. Is there a second?
Second.
Any additional discussion?
Question,
Councilmember Johnson.
so we declare them surplus, and then do we replace them? Or we just don't need them anymore?
Currently, right now, we're not slated to replace any of them. So the bucket truck hasn't been used for some time. We have started working with a local contractor for tree services. So this one that's on the screen right now is used occasionally for tree trimming in the winter. As you can see, there's some major expenses. It's not worth very much. It's a 1992. So you're looking at kind of putting in more money than what it's worth, and that's why it's being declared surplus. We have a bucket truck that was just purchased by the electric department. So this is redundant. It hasn't been used. We have a contracted service that can work. If we want to expand our tree trimming services to our right-of-way, we can look at another bucket truck. I don't see it going that way just because of the cost of a new bucket truck is $215,000. You can get a lot of hourly contracted work for that amount of money.
But to be clear, this particular vehicle is still operational and could be used to augment the contracted labor for tree trimming in the winter?
We would need to do the $11,500.
So that has to be done in order to do it.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure.
It does. So there's an annual, or I think it's every 3 years, it needs to be certified for safety. And those are the items that need to be replaced for it to actually be certified for us to use.
So we have a motion and a second for surplus materials. Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. We now move on to line item 8 Delta, which is our public service equipment update.
Mayor Hague, members of the city council, as you may have seen in the 2018 preliminary budget, we have our preliminary CIP. We have a front-end loader, a wheeled loader that is slated to be replaced in 2019. We've been looking at the numbers and crunching numbers for the budget, and there is a proposed change of roughly 9 to 12% in the state bid contract price for the replacement of this loader. What we're looking for is direction and potentially authorization from city council to put in an order for the loader to be replaced this year to take delivery in 2019. That's doing that estimates, there's an estimate that we would save between $19,430 and $26,791 by putting in our order this year as opposed to waiting until next year. Now, there is a risk to this that, in December, we don't approve the budget with the loader in it. In my opinion, this loader is on its last leg. It needs to be replaced. We likely won't use it if we don't replace it. It likely won't be used anyway. We use it for snow removal and some compost stuff right now. So it's a very high priority item as far as a staff recommendation goes. I don't think that this would be one of the items that we would cut off of the CIP or recommend cutting off the CIP. I think that there's a very high probability that we will recommend this for replacement, and there's a potential to save significant amount of dollars, in my opinion, if we put the order in this year and take delivery next year. So it's something we want to make sure that city council is aware of. We want to get direction and formal authorization to do it because technically our 2019 budget hasn't been approved. But this is something, a priority item that we think we can save a little bit of money on by ordering it now as opposed to 2019.
And just to be clear, in the 2019 CIP, how much money did we put down for a new front-end loader?
I believe it was $200,000.
That's right.
I can,
And this would give us an opportunity of saving between 19 and 27,000 if we purchase now, but take delivery in fiscal year 2019.
correct, yes. I can confirm that number here shortly.
Sounds right. And ultimately, would this vehicle be kept then, or would it as a backup until it gets to a point where we declare it a surplus, or what's the future for this front-end loader?
Once we take delivery of the new loader, we would declare this surplus. Or we would request that it's declared
Councilmember
surplus.
Sullivan.
Just for clarification, do we currently own 2 payloaders? Is that accurate?
We do, yes.
So does the city of Leesore have the capacity that we need to? That was a question that was raised to me.
It is. So they get used pretty frequently. It's almost a daily use. I mean, it is. We basically have to go out to the compost site every day and kind of readjust things that people bring out. It's used extensively in the winter for snow removal. So if we go down to 1, that level of service would decrease quite a bit. It's a very usable piece of equipment that gets used a lot.
And just to be clear, the lease program that we talked about in the Personnel Budget Committee, would something like this be available through the lease program, or is this strictly a purchase type item?
We would lease this. We would if that's the route that we're going to go, and we're going to have those conversations about lease versus buy in the future. But this would be an item that we would lease. We would put in the order. There's no down payment requirement. It's just a purchase authorization form that we fill out. So once we take delivery is when we'd have to pay for it, which would likely be in April.
So even though this is going to be a leased vehicle, we'd still realize this type of savings of between 19 and 27,000.
Yes, just because of the actual purchase price increasing by that 9 to 12%.
Okay, any additional questions, concerns, thoughts, ideas?
How long is lease on something like this?
We would do a 7-year lease on this. And it would be a lease to own, so we would own it at the end for $1 or something like that.
So how old is this one?
This is a 1990.
I'm assuming unlike other vehicle leases, they know they're getting it back with scratches and dents.
Correct. So probably it won't look like this one just because it's very old. But so after 7 years, the idea is that when you lease, you also have maintenance built into that lease so that they're maintaining their vehicle to their standards. So then when they get it back, they know exactly what they're getting. So that's another benefit to it as well.
But we have the option to keep it.
We do.
And for the benefit of city council, when we have the CIP conversation, everybody will get brought into the know in regards to what this new government lease program is that you discovered, as opposed to why we can not have to worry about purchasing these big ticket items in the future.
Yep, correct. And basically, the gist of it is that we're evaluating an equipment certificate, which is basically selling a certificate similar to a bond to purchase these items over a 10-year period versus leasing it. And there's benefits to both, and some challenges for both. There's bond rating implications. If we do a certificate, you pay a slightly higher interest rate for leasing, but there's also some perks as far as capitalizing on your lease over the years as well. So the depreciation isn't incorporated into your budget, so there's savings there as well. So we'll go over all of that. We'll bring Zach in. He's very well versed in lease versus buy. I've done a lot of research on it, and it's all up. It's basically up to city council. They're both fine ways of purchasing items. the leasing option, we have the option to buy it over, 7 years or 5 years or 3 years, whereas an equipment certificate is something that would spread it out over 10 years likely.
Question in
Councilmember
relation to the
Johnson.
pluses and minuses. I was just thinking, if we get into another recession for 3 or 4 years, and we're locked into lease payments versus, then we lose the flex, you can postpone buying something when you're in a recession, but you can't postpone your lease payments, right?
I don't believe so. If we're looking at purchasing with straight cash, that's one option that we don't really have right now. We would have to use an equipment certificate, and we would be obligated to make that payment as well. In an ideal place, we would have planned for these expenditures in the past, gained a fund balance, and be able to pay cash, which then we wouldn't have any future obligations for. But the two options that we're working with are we would have future obligations regardless. Leasing, there may be potential of like refinancing or something like that. There's that potential with an equipment certificate as well, but I think it's more difficult with a certificate than with leasing because there's legal implications as far as what you can do when certificates are callable and things like that. Whereas a lease, you're just working with a bank, with a person.
You alluded to a fund balance, which we really haven't talked much about here, but it's another word for that would be a rainy day fund, to some extent, that could be used one-time expenditures during recession times to postpone cuts.
Correct. And, we're building our fund balance right now. Our capital improvement plan will allow us to plan accordingly for items. It's just we're in a position where we need to replace a lot of things in a short amount of time. But hopefully, if we get on track, we can start planning for the future.
Any additional questions?
No, I would like to have a clarification from the city administrator as to what you're asking us to do, because you're asking us essentially to authorize either leasing or purchasing, perhaps just we'd be authorizing a purchase order. If you'd be clear, then we could make a motion, but.
Yep. We're just looking for authorization to put the purchase order in. The way that we pay for it, that'll be determined in the future. So we're just looking for authorization to place the order.
And how would you define what the order is for? Is it just simply for a wheel loader?
Yes.
Okay. It's a little vague, but that's because we don't know what the equipment is exactly, isn't it?
And by doing it now, it gives us the benefit of saving us $19,000 to $27,000.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we authorize the purchase order being processed for a wheel loader pursuant to our discussion.
Okay. So we have a motion for the authorization of a purchase order for the wheel loader. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion is carried. We now move on to our comments, reports, and items of appreciation. And let's go ahead and start off with Council Member Roloff tonight.
I attended the RPAC meeting. I believe it was the first week in October, so last week, and we found out from Lane that currently the community center is not charging the patron when they take out memberships for tax, and the community center is taking over that to pay for that coverage for that tax on the memberships for any memberships of the community center. So we are currently in actually discussion to charge the tax to the patron.
Sales tax.
Yep, sales tax. Yep, sales tax. So then that would make up about $10,000 a year. Lane said that they are currently paying out their that the community center is currently covering right now is about $10,000 in the sales tax. And then there's then we are also discussing to raise the rates on the memberships. The last time that they were raised was about 4 to 5 years, Lane said, and they are currently overdue. So we're in discussion to either do actually 5%, 10%, or also a 15% increase. So we will be meeting next month to discuss that and to hammer that out of what we are going to recommend to the city council of what we would like to do on the membership rates. Then we also discuss the ice rates for the ice arena. What we currently charge the high school, and what we currently charge the hockey association. Those haven't been raised either for actually quite some time. But Lane did point out that if we raise them now, we won't see that extra funding until next year because the school and the hockey association has already done their budget for this year. So we wouldn't see that funding if we raise the rates for the ice arena, rates for the hockey rental.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's all I have.
Councilmember Roloff, if you would be kind enough to get together with Councilmember Favalis because of him being in St. Paul for that
Yep.
meeting. So bring him up to speed on
Okay.
everything associated with the RPAC. That would
Yep.
be great.
Yep, I will.
Thank you. Councilmember Huntington.
Well, Mayor, as chairman of the HRA board, my executive director gave the presentation earlier, and so I have nothing to add to that.
Okay. Did we have anything associated with MVRT
No.
since the last meeting?
Nope.
Okay. Councilmember Krogman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and members of the council and the public. On September 20th, you'll recall there was a tornado that went through the Waterville area and then over toward Faribault. In fact, you could draw a line between Waterville and Faribault, and that's where it went. For those of you familiar with the Faribault area, the airport was substantially damaged, and the path of that tornado took it directly to what's called Faribault Energy Park, which is a Minnesota Municipal Power Agency asset. In fact, it's our primary asset for electrical generation. We sustained substantial damage to the plant. Most of it is nothing inside, thank goodness. It's all exterior, but it's still costly to repair. But insurance and other reserve funds will pay for that. We had no loss of service for our customers throughout the communities served by MMPA. And there was a scheduled downtime for certain maintenance issues that was just accelerated, moved up a couple of weeks perhaps. Can't remember the exact timing. So there was really no loss of service, but it shows you the ability of our MMPA to be able to respond to an emergency. That was quite a tornado. It did a lot of damage in that area. There were 2 cars overturned on Interstate 35, which is right there. A lot of outside damage. I can't get into the detail, but it will be easily covered. In fact, as a result, as you might expect when these things happen, sometimes you take damaged things and make them better. Right. So in the end, we'll be okay.
If I recall, that tornado either hit 15 different places or touched down 15 different times, if I was reading it correctly in the paper.
Probably so.
Yeah.
I happened to be in Waterville that afternoon, and I was gone within 2 hours it happened, I think it was. So kind of amazing.
And I should also point out that you had passed out to all of us the CGMC, which is a Coalition for Greater Minnesota Cities, in brief to each of us.
Only to the members of the MRFPUC and to you.
Okay. So we want to make sure that we take our time to go ahead and read it, and if we have any questions or anything of that nature, let's make sure to get back.
Let's be clear, that was also sent to everybody. It was a way to highlight what's in there. It had to do with wastewater.
If you have anything at all that needs to be brought back to Councilmember Krogman regarding what we're reading about, let's make sure we send him an email so he can be best prepared to go ahead and help us in the future with CGMC affairs. Thank you, sir. Councilmember Johnson.
I have 2 interrelated items. One has to do with the transition that the council will be undergoing here in a couple months. We will have at least one we have one relatively new council member and another council member leaving, and hopefully not Newell or Marvin again, but there'll be a transition and you'll be reassigning people to different commissions and roles in January. And I think it's important to start thinking about that now and thinking about how I think when we did this last year, we talked about the importance of people signing up or requesting things they're interested in and motivated to be on, and then between the mayor and the city administrator, they can take that into consideration in assigning, making those assignments. So one of the responsibilities that I have and will be giving up is the representation of the city on the Ridgeview to Sueur Medical Center Board, which meets monthly. So I thought, just to illustrate some of the things that someone new in this position might be interested in, is just that a little bit about that board. You realize in the last couple of years that we've transitioned from being relatively independent as a city to aligning ourselves with Ridgeview Medical Center, which has a number of different facilities in different towns. Here's the just example. Now, I'm not going to pass this around. Just the organizational lineup of personnel at just this medical center. And you think of our lineup here in the city council, this board has a organizational structure as well. You have the opportunity on that board to get board certified through the Minnesota Trust Hospital Association as a trustee. And they have, as Newell alluded to with the Minnesota League of Minnesota Cities and the Coalition of Essential Cities, the opportunity there to become board certified as a trustee is there. Very excellent in-service and education programs. They have a strategic plan, strategic priorities 2017 to 2020, an action plan with governance metrics and so forth. Recently, this last year, they have a call to action in regard to an action plan for the nursing home. Nursing homes throughout Minnesota and the country have been closing for a variety of reasons, and our nursing home has lost enrollment for a number of years, and there's an action plan to try to correct that and reverse that to some extent. They have a quality council. Monthly, we get a quality council report. This is a rather extensive, in detail report about the operations and specific quality measures that the medical center is using, and they're highlighted. We get a budget report, update on the budget report, and from all kinds of different angles and graphs every month, comparing current revenues and expenditure versus a year ago, ongoing for this year compared to previous years, and so forth. So we spend quite a bit of time in those board meetings on budget on a monthly basis. We obviously have an audit and a big yearly planning budget plan, and now it's more complicated because it's Ridgeview we're a part of Ridgeview and looking at a much bigger budget. The council members there that are not staff and aren't from Ridgeview, or at least from Marconia. Irene Mankey is one, Bob Broder, former mayor, Dave Brown, Randy Baum has been the chairperson for quite a while. Kay King is a relatively new member. I'll be going off, so someone from the council will be appointed, and Steve Smith is the other one. So there's 7 board members that are appointed or elected or approved, and they have varying terms. So this is I think an important group. The city is represented there originally because of the facilities and so forth, and we're still connected there because we're still involved in a 3-year affiliation plan that could be possibly reversed. It doesn't look like it will be. But this is an opportunity, I think, for someone that's on the council this next year, and for a mayor and city administrator to think about appointing that is really an important position, is an important board. It's important for the city as one of the major amenities here, and hopefully someone will be motivated to step forward and be appointed. But again, back to the whole transition idea. Turnover means you've got to reappoint people and move things around a little bit and make sure people are in their most productive position to benefit the city. And I recommend that if you haven't already, mayor and city administrator, start thinking about this and how that can best be handled in the next couple of months before it happens in January.
I appreciate that very much, Councilmember Johnson. It is something that we already have on our radar, but I appreciate you bringing up the importance of the hospital board. And for those that are currently sitting on city council, I would like you to consider thinking about replacing Councilmember Johnson. If you have any interest in that endeavor, please reach out to him, let him know, because as you can see, and from what he's defined, it's a rather taxing job with a lot of information to know and understand. So if there's somebody that's currently sitting on council, give it some thought. Okay, and if we don't have any takers, then obviously we'll have to deal with what happens with the election in November. So give it some thought, please. Councilmember Favalis.
Murph Puck. Murph Puck is an interesting thing all the way around. This week, I'm very proud and pleased with my partners in crime, so to speak. Councilmember Sullivan and Mayor Haig accompanied me to our mediation. Can't talk about, we're really not going to talk about the mediation and strategy or anything like that, but to have the support of these two individuals and their input in a very long process. We left here from City Hall at 6:30 in the morning. We did not return until about 7:30 or so in the evening. It was very long and very grueling, and the first step in our mediation, and there will be another one coming up. We just don't know what that date is going to be set for. Strategy is definitely a key aspect to this. So I'm very thankful for having the team members that were there to help. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Councilmember Favalis, would you simply indicate what the issue was so people understand? Not in any great detail, just in general.
We were given our latest, or the newest permit in 2016, and Murph Puck didn't agree with the permit. Things changed in that permit, and it is our basis that certain things weren't done legally and certain things weren't done to follow the science. And we believe that we have a good representation of those issues, and we contested our permit, and MPCA denied us a contested case, and we fought on that aspect, and we were finally given the opportunity to move forward. We had chosen mediation, and were signed basically a kind of a contract with MPCA to enter into at least 3 or more mediation sessions to try to get this resolved.
Okay, Councilmember Sullivan.
Just to piggyback on that, I think I'd like to commend Councilman Favalis for the great representation up at mediation. He's got a lot on his plate. It was a pleasure being there with him, though, and seeing that take place. Other than that, we just got Murph Puck meeting Wednesday night, so.
I would like to ask both of you to make sure that you get together with Councilmember Huntington as a fellow Murph Puck member to make sure that he's up to speed in regards to what's going on, and I know you will, so thank you. Okay, how about our city attorney? Anything, sir?
No, sir.
Okay. City clerk? Anything? Okay, let's go ahead and turn it on over then to our city administrator, Jasper Krugel.
Thank you. I am trying to coordinate a joint meeting with Henderson regarding the resolution that was passed the last meeting. The date I proposed is November 13th So looking at that, that's a Tuesday. So just that's kind of a reminder as well that the 12th is Veterans Day. City offices are closed. We will be having the council meeting on the 13th, which is a Tuesday, which is outside of our normal schedule. So that's the proposed date. Also, I've met with the superintendent, I believe, 3 times in the last month. And we're working on developing a joint meeting with the school board. And we're looking at doing that on February 13th of 2019. So newly elected council members potentially and newly elected school board members to meet and just talk about ways to collaborate, talk about our community education contract that we have with the school district and see if that's the direction we're going in or we'd like to proceed in. Just to kind of just have this meeting to be cordial with our additional people. So I have a project management meeting on the Trunk Highway 112 turnback next week as well. That's just a meeting where basically some city staff, some county staff meet and go over where we're at as far as developing plans. The reason I bring that up is we are hoping to get some additional feedback from MnDOT. We're still waiting. We haven't gotten anything back about the potential roundabout at the intersection of Bridge and Main Street. So we're still working on that. I think it's really relevant that we try to provide as many updates as we can since we had a very good meeting, a downtown master plan meeting where we kind of unveiled and talked about what the options are for that intersection. So we're working on it. As soon as we get some information, we will make that information known. We will be having a series of personnel and budget committee meetings, so I will be reaching out to that group to set those up to start going over enterprise fund budgets for 2019, talking about lease versus equipment certificates. What are some other things? We're going to talk about the option to be 100% renewable, and I have noticed there is one other community that's doing this now. So that's looking at potentially being 100% renewable, buying energy or renewable energy credits for every kilowatt hour. Looking at changing some of the rate structures for our wastewater, looking at what's more equitable, potentially breaking things up a little bit more, I would say transparent, looking at what some of the fixed costs are, what the treatment costs are, and what the bond payments are. So on your bill, you'd have 3 charges that you could see, well, this is what portion of my bill goes towards the bond payment that we have, what portion of my bill goes towards what we call Sueur access, and that includes any future expenditures and depreciation of current assets, and then what the actual treatment costs are. I think this is something that the Public Services Director brought up. I think this would be something great for the community because of the costs that are tied into our wastewater treatment. The treatment is actually minimal. It's very small compared to the others. So it'd be something to, help explain why rates are where they're at. So got a lot of things. It's budget season and we're going to keep moving forward. So Personnel and Budget Committee will be meeting quite a few times here.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, what I have is I just want to remind everybody in Sueur that on October 16th, and I believe the hours are from 6 to 8, over at the school auditorium, there'll be the school board member forum. And then on October 23rd, from 6 to 9 p.m., there'll be the candidate forum right here in this room. So I would highly encourage people to attend both of these. And in regards to our city council candidate forum, that will be available on live stream and on Facebook as well if you cannot make it here in person. And with that, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. And Stacy.